Hey, everybody. Day drinkers. We're actually drinking during the day. It's good to see you. I took a nice little sabbatical, a month to read some books, to write some books, to take naps, all the things that you need to do. So I'm really glad to be back. And I'm back with a doozy of a book. For those of you who might not know what this is Day Drinking with Authors. I'm your host, Molly Fader. It is the interview series where I pick a book and the author picks a drink and we discuss both. My guest today is Amy Mason Doan, and we're talking about her beautiful third book, Lady Sunshine. And today, for every comment or view that we get at the end of the day, I am going to donate some money to Moms Demand Action to stop the epidemic of gun violence in the United States. And Amy has cheerfully promised to match me. So please, guys, make us pay. If you're watching, ask a question or just say hi. So before I bring Amy out here, let's read the back cover of her book, which is a beautiful cover and it's really a beautiful book. Mom, you would like this back cover and you would like this book. One iconic family, one summer of secrets, the dazzling spirit of 1970s California. For Jackie Pierce, everything changed the summer of 1979 when she spent 3 months of infinite freedom at her bohemian uncle's sprawling estate on the California coast. As musicians, artists, and free spirits gathered at the Sandcastle for the season in pursuit of inspiration and communal living, Jackie and her cousin Willa fell into a fast friendship, testing their limits along the rocky beach and in the wild woods until the summer abruptly ended in tragedy and Willa silently slipped away into the night. 20 years later, Jackie unexpectedly inherits the sandcastle and returns to the iconic estate for a short visit to ready it for sale. But she reluctantly extends her stay when she learns that before her death, her estranged aunt had promised an up-and-coming producer he could record a tribute album to her late uncle at the property's studio. As her musical guests bring the place to life again with their sun-drenched beach days and late-night bonfires, Jackie begins to notice startling parallels to that summer long ago. And when a piece of the past resurfaces and sparks new questions about Willa's disappearance, Jackie must discover if the dark secret she's kept ever since is even the truth at all. Let's bring out Amy. Hello, Amy.
Hi, Molly. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. Here's to you. Let's talk about this drink.
Mine is so much greener.
Yours is a little neon.
It is. I'm waiting. If my tongue turns green, that's okay, right? It all flies here. I think it may well turn green.
So I could not get green creme de menthe. I could only get the white one. So I think what mine actually is it's called a polar bear.
I think yours is classier than mine. I mean, honestly, I think this is like Scope and mint chip ice cream. And this is a cool glass. My husband got me these Art Deco glasses.
They are beautiful.
First anniversary. But it's not a classy looking drink, but it's tasty.
Always.
It's 1:00 here. I'm in. I don't think I'm going to get a lot of writing done later because this is strong too. Really
so how you picked grasshoppers in part because of the 1970s settings, but you also have a bit of an emotional connection to grasshoppers, which I can appreciate. So tell us what your connection is.
Well, my emotional connection has to do with a movie, Romancing the Stone, which is actually probably an 80s movie, but I think I watched it a ton in the 80s. And at the very beginning, the author, who's a romance writer, is meeting with her agent and delivering her manuscript. And they're checking out men in this bar. And Kathleen Turner is drinking grasshoppers. And her agent's trying to get her to loosen up. She's like, have another grasshopper. So I think that was just formative for me for some reason. I think I watched
That's what classy writers drink.
Classy writers drink this.
Neon green.
Look at that, honestly, or it kind of looks like Vicks NyQuil.
It doesn't look of nature, that's for sure.
Right, it's nature. I don't think they got it there using natural methods. I wish I had the bottle to show you. I think I'm going to have that bottle
forever. I don't know. So my connection to grasshoppers is my parents. So I'm from a really small town. And my dad was a teacher at the high school, and the science department was a pretty tight group of people, and they would have these traveling dinner parties. So does this ringing any bells?
No, it sounds fun.
So you would have an appetizer and a cocktail at somebody's house,
Oh,
a main course and a cocktail at somebody else's house, and
yes.
then dessert and a cocktail at
Progressive dinners. That's I think
yeah.
that's the American way. We called it progressive dinners. You
Yeah.
go from house to house.
Right.
Okay.
So one year, my mom, and I could be getting this wrong, it might not have been at my mom's house. All the kids might have been shuffled to one house. And that house was in charge of desserts and the last cocktail. And it was a grasshopper. And you opened up the freezer and there were these tall, those like beautiful glasses drizzled with chocolate. And we were like, they were like, you cannot eat these. And we ate them.
Shamrock shakes. Do you remember the shamrock shakes they would have at McDonald's? Well, so tempting.
Yes, and then as older, we tried to recreate the grasshopper with the shamrock shake and a little bottle of vodka in the backseat.
That is the height of sophistication. That is, so Kathleen Turner, progressive dinners. That was such
very 1970s.
I know. My neighbors and I actually did a progressive dinner for New Year's Eve one year, like 6 years ago, and it was so much fun. I think we had appetizers, and again, I'm always gravitating towards this nostalgic retro stuff. I decided to do there was a Velveeta appetizer, and it was again classing it up. But I love all that stuff. I love old recipes. But this bottle, we had these for my book launch, which is almost a year ago when Lady Sunshine came out, and I gave some creme de coco and creme de menthe to the bookstore owner who was hosting the event, and to my co-host, my fellow author, Julie Clark. And I'm convinced that those bottles are just going to be in their cabinets for 50 years gathering dust, because there's just not a lot of ways to use it, especially with creme de menthe.
There's only one. It's only grasshopper.
That's it. Like they need
if you're going to put hot chocolate in the winter,
Okay, maybe I'll be doing that. But thanks a lot. 1:00 here in Oregon, and luckily I got a lot done this morning because the afternoon is just going to be, maybe I'll go read in the hammock.
There you go.
So that's about all I'll be able to do.
So I had reached out to you a year ago about talking about this book, and you were like, Molly, I would love to, but I am literally at the end fried. Yeah. And I wanted to talk to you briefly about, like, for a long, I started this podcast during the pandemic, and I was asking authors, like, how are you doing writing in the pandemic? But the other reality of this has been promoting books in the pandemic, and that is almost harder. It's like easier in so many ways, but also much, much harder. How did you do last summer? How did you feel? Like, you were clearly done.
We're done. Yeah, the book's out and people are finding it, and all that is lovely. It was definitely hard. There wasn't that. We had a lovely launch, and I did. It was virtual, and I had a local bookstore host, and same bookstore, Broadway Books here in Portland, that hosted in-person events for my other two. And we had a good response, and again, I had an in conversation with another author. But it's not the same. It's not the same as having the cake with your book cover on it and being able to hug people and having that feeling of celebration in person. It was fun, and we did a trivia night with 70s questions. That was really fun.
Oh, that's clever.
Yeah.
That is so different. That is so clever.
It was really fun. I spent weeks, I think I was probably nervous. You get nervous before your book comes out. So I would put my energy into researching 70s trivia questions. And it was stuff like which movie didn't come out in 1979, things like that. What's the angle of an earth shoe?
What is the angle of an earth shoe?
Now, I think it was like, because the thing with an earth shoe is your heel is lower than your toe. This was like the groundbreaking thing. And it was 7.4 degrees. So I think I was really tough. The questions were hard. It was like 74 degrees, 7.4, 0.74. And it's like a math test in college.
Did you do a lot of music too? Music is saturated deep into this book.
Yes, there was a music related. There were a couple of music related questions, and I think, what was the answer? Goodness. Oh, who wrote The Hustle?
Who wrote The Hustle?
Who wrote The Hustle? You don't know?
You don't know? I don't know. You
Well,
know.
I know, but only because I did this. So the hustle, and it was multiple choice. So here were the possibilities. They were Camper Van Beethoven, Van McCoy, or If This Van's a Rockin', which is like obvious, like not even a band. I just made that up to be weird. It's Van McCoy. There, now you'll always know that he wrote The Hustle.
Wow. I wonder
Yeah.
does Van McCoy live off the proceeds from that, or did they get screwed?
I don't. I think that it's still. I think it was kind of a one-hit wonder, huh? I can't. I'll have to find
But
out.
it's in so many movies. Like it's really
It is.
we are.
It is. It's a classic seven. So to get back to Lady Sunshine, maybe.
Yeah, right. Sorry, we have. I
Yeah.
mean, grasshoppers.
So Lady Sunshine, the main character Jackie, is kind of a disco girl. So a lot of the book is 1979, and she's really into that. She kind of feels free at the disco, and she keeps people at a distance, but she likes line dances. She likes the hustle, and
Yeah.
and all this stuff. And she goes to stay with her cousin Willa, and your beautiful introduction kind of hinted at this. And Willa's the complete opposite. Like Willa does not even listen to music from this decade, really. She's around folk music people. Her father, Graham, is this aging folk artist. So she's
Like you give you paint a real picture of someone who had a tremendous amount of success and still is well respected, but whose star is waning.
Yes.
And who was Graham inspired by? Did you have somebody in mind?
I did. I mean, he's a hybrid of a few people. He's a little bit of David Crosby. He's a little bit. I mean, I don't want to give too many names, but because he's his own person, and he's definitely got a darker side than a lot of these people.
Right.
Little Jackson Brown, perhaps. Really brilliant singer-songwriter with a dark side that we don't know a lot about at the beginning, or at least a conflicted personality. And so he's idolized, of course, by Jackie, who, when she gets there, he's so different from her family. Her father's in finance, and they live in San Francisco in a Nob Hill apartment. And then she goes to this place, which is up the coast in Humboldt County, which is really wild. And it's just a different world to her. And Graham is a big part of that because he just accepts everyone. He's a real free spirit and, again, artistic, and everyone converges on this place in the summer. It's almost like a summer camp for grown-ups.
Yeah. And I feel like one of the things that you really managed to hammer home without being explicit, and it's one of the things, like hammering home without being explicit, is like your like modus operandi. Like you really do manage to convey something so explicitly without ever really saying it. And one of the things was how, I mean, Jackie is the only point of view character in the present and in the past. And obviously her filter is a huge part of the story, but as a teenager, she shows up there and you get the sense that she was making really unsafe decisions. She was making decisions in a need to be loved and in a need to be seen, basically just seen. And she shows up at this place, and like almost upon first meeting Graham, she's like, "Oh, I'm safe and I'm seen here."
Yeah,
like,
and I'm seen.
Yeah.
And heard. So much of the book is about women's voices, because it is singers and songwriters, and she thinks that he sees her and hears her. And yeah, we know that she's promiscuous in her other life, that she had this problematic relationship with her father, and then she finds her uncle, and it's just like a dream come true. And especially her cousin, the relationship that Jackie and Willa have is just this real bond of opposites. And they've really each been craving that close female friendship, but for different reasons, they've never had it. Willa's here with mostly adults and operates kind of on an adult plane. And then here comes her cousin, who's just a tiny bit older, and they have this bond that seems pretty unshakable. But they're all trying to be heard. That's kind of one of the epigraphs for the book that guided me as I was writing it. It's like, who gets to be heard?
Right.
As a musician, as a songwriter, as a lyricist. Jackie cannot sing. She's a terrible voice. It's part of the book. but her cousin actually has a beautiful voice. But Jackie can write. She can write song lyrics. So I play with that idea a lot in the book. Like who decides who's
Right.
heard? Is it women? Is it not? And what's changing? And I there was so much to explore with it. It was a really fun book to write.
One of the things that I really thought about while I was reading it was women's artistic spaces and men's artistic spaces, right? And how Graham, when we meet him through Jackie's eyes, for a huge chunk of the book, we give him so much leeway because there's a part of what he's doing that feels so feminist. It feels like he's nurturing this community. It feels very egalitarian, feels very everybody gets to be heard and to be seen, blah 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 blah. And because Jackie felt safe there, as a reader you feel safe there. And then you show us little bits, like in the 90s. I kept thinking about they go to see the Lilith Fair in the 90s, which I went to go see.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. But at the same time, what was it? The Woodstock, the 99 Woodstock?
Yeah, same year as one of the Lilith fairs. Yeah, the Woodstock 99 with the mosh pits and women being assaulted. And yes, I'm so glad you picked up on that and remembered that contrast, because that was important to me.
And again, that was the only real explicit mention of that contrast, but it made me rethink the thing that Graham was creating there and how much, and I'm sorry, I'm blanking on Graham's wife's name.
How am I? Wait, I'm blanking. This is terrible. This is
the actress Gardner. Shit. Sorry.
Let's blame the grasshopper. I'm going to blame the grasshopper. How am I not remembering her aunt? I think she just calls her my aunt most of the time. So we'll let that skate by.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, but how much did she? Pardon?
You get hints that maybe not all is as it seems with Graham.
Sure. Yes, but you also wonder how much of what is being created by those women sort of trying, like, keeping not him in check, but covering up for him. Like, it was just, there was a lot to say about women's spaces and voices.
I appreciate that. Yeah. I mean, I think that's the question, that I pose in the book. And that's a question that we wrestle with still, of course, in 2022. Like, what do we forgive men that we don't forgive women? What do we forgive male artists? He's just a troubled artist, right? Like what's allowable? And he left something beautiful behind, but at what cost? And, I think it's interesting to see all the women in his orbit and how they make different choices about how to move forward in their lives and with their own passions. His daughter, Willa, she's someone who just wants to create, and that's enough for her. She doesn't necessarily care as much about a legacy or fans, whereas Graham, he very much cares. He pretends he doesn't. He pretends he's fine kind of being the patriarch and
the older statesman.
Yeah, but he misses it. And so he misses the acclaim and the validation that came to him back in the day. And you see that it has quite a cost for him and for the people around him.
Right. That's so much of his identity.
Right.
While also rejecting that it's a big part of his identity. I think that's that sort of disconnect. I mean, we're seeing it play out live. That disconnect in men is really
certainly in Hollywood. And and I think as a writer, I was very interested in the idea of how you go from creating to promoting. And I think we were talking about doing all these Zoom events, last summer. Like, for me, the fact that writers pivot back and forth between something so personal and so quiet and often private and solitary to, hey, public, almost like I have to be a comedian and I'm promoting, and it's a very different energy. And sometimes it feels like a relief, and it certainly is a joy to share books with people once they've read them, because so much of our work is done again, in private. But pivoting back and forth like that is not natural or easy all the time. And there's a line in the book about how artists have to go from dreaming to strutting and back again.
Yeah.
And the one, there's one female singer in the book who does that quite well and quite naturally and has made her peace with it. But it's not easy. And it doesn't forgive anything that Graham may have done. But that idea that you're taking something so intensely personal and arranging pieces of your heart and then putting them on display for people, like that'll come at a cost.
Yep.
And, there's a lot
And trying to make it consumable.
Right. Right. It's that natural tension between the art and the product. And here I am 3 books in, and I'm not saying I have all the answers. I know that I love writing, and I know that I love storytelling, and I know that I do want to please readers, but I think there will always be that conflict for me between the private and the public,
Yeah. Yeah. And I do think the quarantine kind of made it so technically easy to be public in a way that it has never been before. That like there was no reason to say no. There's no reason to say no to an event except, oh my God, you've got to say no. We literally just can't do it anymore. And so, and I feel like that's been a trend as I talk to authors. We were talking about writing in the pandemic, which was its own like experience.
Right.
But now this new part of it, this new leg of like, everything's on Zoom. So why say no?
And how do you mix that in with a real life tour? There's part of it that's a relief because there's so much pressure that goes into, especially for first time authors, doing a tour and having a tour. And you think that that's what all authors do is like have a national book tour. The reality is very few.
Yeah. 5 of them do.
Yeah, exactly. And that was true before the pandemic. And if they do, they're probably paying for some of it themselves and just, so there is a tendency to say yes to every event. And, you're not just turning the computer on. Like you got to put your cat away. My cat's, I can actually, I don't know if you guys can hear her. The cat has suffered because of my Zoom commitments. You
got to put your cat away.
You got to put your cat away. So there's that. But, like you aren't inviting people into your home and like this area looks clean, but like, you're sprucing up. I had to like put some concealer on and stuff that I don't normally do. So it is a commitment and it is exposure that, you can't just say yes to everything. You and I know each other really well. And, but it is easy just to say yes to everything and then feel like, what am I doing? Like, am I really connecting?
So you actually, while the writing of this book in the pandemic, I feel like I had a lot of friends who like, and I did too. I like rented an Airbnb and snuck away for a little bit because, my entire family was home, but you went like one step more natural.
Yeah. I mean, I think the only thing more natural would be just like doing Naked and Afraid and trying to write a book or something. So I pitched a tent in our backyard during the height of COVID. I had a draft of the book, luckily, had the draft down, and then COVID hit. I had serious revisions to do. So this is like 2020, early 2020. My daughter, who's in high school, was doing school at home. My husband was working at home, and we have a lovely house, but it's really old. It's a 1924 house. So the ductwork is just horrible. Like you can hear everything. It's basically like, a telephone. And my husband, I feel like I finally know what he does. He works in Poland. So his job is let's just say it's very vocal. Like he's got a lot of meetings and they're loud and he's talking and that's his job. And he's great at it, but it's loud. And then my daughter was doing her classes and like doing PE in the living room and, prancing across the living room and all of this, even if you wear headphones or earplugs, it's tough, And so now it sounds strange, but at the time it just felt like such a logical thing to do. I just pitched a camping tent in our backyard and I did my writing out there, and often I would sleep out there so that I could wake up and write.
You slept out there too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, not every night, but like I love.
Yeah, that's a dream.
You probably feel this way. Waking up and writing before you're afraid, before you check your phone. That is to me when I get my best stuff down usually. So I love that. I love being able to wake up in the middle of the night if I have an idea and, start writing. So I did that for months. That tent was out there. And I would kind of move it around because my husband was worried about the grass. I was killing all the grass. And I was like, so I would drag it around. And I really got a lot done. And it felt like nobody's going to bug me out there. The Wi-Fi
No.
work. That's like, I will do it from now on because our Wi-Fi didn't reach out there.
Oh my gosh.
Productive. And
I
I was
feel like you stumbled upon a
right?
serious secret.
I know, a tent. It's, a tent, just working outdoors. Like, I don't think I'd ever, my first 2 books, I did not really write them outdoors.
Yeah.
And I think with all my books, the setting is so important. So especially for this one, which is set at the Sandcastle, this place on the coast, I think that outdoor feeling came through because I was writing a lot of it outside. It's the backyard of one's own. That's
yeah, exactly. You'll write the new Virginia Woolf 2.0.
I have a room in the house. It was just loud, so I took the backyard as my own, and it worked. It was good luck.
So let's talk about the setting in this book. Did you have you? I mean, it is a gigantic setting in terms of the importance. It is not just like character; it is also plot.
Yeah.
The setting is a big deal, and her relationship to it, her ownership, how she comes to feel an ownership of it in the 70s and then comes back in the 90s and is clearly terrified of it, like clearly unable to even go into rooms, much less other parts of the property. So tell us about how you envisioned this property. Is it based on something that you know?
Yeah, it's not. Sadly, everyone has been, a lot of readers have emailed and said, like, can I go there? Because it does sound beautiful. It's not a real place. Humboldt County is a real place. This area north of San Francisco, that's a real rugged, gorgeous area of the coast where you can still walk on the beach and be alone, and there's sea glass and just a little more isolated than some other areas in California. I loosely based the record studio part of it on the record plant, which was Fleetwood Mac's studio in Sausalito. So the idea of having a property where you lived and recorded, that's not my idea that exists. I'd love it myself if I were a recording artist.
As much as you tried to recreate it in your backyard, it
is with my little phone. It's not quite the same as the Sandcastle. So the Sandcastle is this gorgeous piece of property with cabins and buildings, and everyone comes to stay, whether they're working on an album or not, but it's got a great studio. And this is an analog studio, not a digital studio, because we're talking late 70s when people were still doing a lot of stuff analog. So they've got this in the main house, they've got a recording studio, but then other people come and stay. And then once an album is wrapped, they all party and stay there for the summer. And it's just everyone's welcome. The door is wide open.
Totally communal, like 100%.
Communal, and it's basically like a big circle with a field in the middle and then trees. And I have it plotted out to the square foot, where everything is, and there's waterfalls. And this is a place that I would love to go. But I did do a lot of research, obviously, on the recording. I talked to a wonderful engineer who worked with Prince and did a lot of analog recording because I get those facts right. She works at
the detail about the support beam and the cat. Like, where'd that come from?
Vibrating. I think that was her. I mean, I went to a lot of projects just to see what, so I could describe the mixing table and how everything looks, because I'm not a sound engineer and I'm not a singer, sadly, or luckily for you guys. But I'm a journalist at heart, so I wanted to get those details right. And I saw some things being
and that's funny because, like, wanting to get those details right, but also those details are not the details aren't integral to the story. Like, you're saying that you wanted to, and I was like, God, do you even really see that in the book? But it doesn't matter. As a writer, you've got to know that.
As a writer, you need to know. It's that, there's the old description of a book. It's like the top of an iceberg, and you can only see this, but there's so much down below. And I do feel like if that stuff doesn't exist, you feel it as a reader. Like, you want to believe that this world is
Yeah.
real, and you want to feel that you're in good hands and that the author knows what they're talking about. And so you were describing the vibrations that Jackie's cat feels, because she's staying in the main house, but the studio's down below, and there's just a couple parts where you can feel things vibrating, so she knows stuff's happening down there. And she has this very interesting love interest who's come to record a tribute album to her uncle. And as you mentioned, she's just really scared of confronting that past summer, and we don't quite know why, but we know that it was huge for her. So those little details, like feeling the vibrations in the studio,
That
which
detail,
cat likes, the cat loves the vibrations.
that detail, it's funny. It's, the advice you get as a writer is not about all the details. It's about the right details.
Right.
And that cat and the vibration told me everything I needed to know about that. So you didn't need to take us into the studio and describe the buttons and the things like that, because this cat did the work for you. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah. You want to feel that you're there and the stuff is really happening. Yeah, and it's sensory. So it's not just visual. There's sound and there's texture. And anyway,
as you were sort of building the setting, were you like, I need a waterfall? I need a giant swing over the coast.
Yeah, probably I just wanted one. I mean, it was COVID, and there wasn't a whole lot to do. I did puzzles that lasted a couple weeks, and then I was so bored with puzzles and baking and all that. But I think I was craving travel. We weren't really at the very beginning. We weren't going anywhere. We felt, and so I think there was a lot of wish fulfillment in the book, and I think in all three of my books, and then the fourth one that I'm working on now, at least so far, I always set them in places where I would love to go. There's a lake in the summer list, and Summer Hours is about a road trip up Pacific Coast Highway. Right. So these are all places that I know well, and that I find beautiful.
One of the other things that I really love about your books is your teenage girl friendships. Like and how you somehow manage to nail how formative, like how truly important they are, while at the same time being one decision away from utter ruin. And I mean, I feel like there's something that's so accurate about that, like that even the most healthy and beautiful and loving and equal teenage girl relationships is one decision away from something really bad happening. And I feel like reading your book, particularly this one, I mean, and the decision they make, it's a disaster. It's bad. But like everybody looks back at their teenage years and at their best friend in their teenage years and just thinks, my God, how did we survive? How did we?
Totally. I certainly feel that way. And there's such an intensity to those friendships too. Yeah. I mean, they really are the world. And Jackie and Willa, like what they have is so beautiful. But what I wanted to show is, again, how close they are to the edge, because there's a certain feeling of invincibility that they give each other, because they're so different and they have these successes together. But we see that they're really teetering really close to the edge of disaster. You can't give away too much, but I appreciate that because that's important to me. And certainly all of my books feature those female relationships, which are
the repercussions of those. Mm-hmm. I mean, all of your books, like that's really the repercussions of that, like that one bad decision that that two friends make together oftentimes.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I hope I'm not writing the same book.
No.
I think it's true. Like I'm obsessed with that idea. And I just think there's so much to mine there with the classic story of a woman confronting her past. And you can do it in so many ways. And I think we all just have so many secrets that we keep, especially from ourselves, about our past. Mm-hmm. And I just find it endlessly fascinating, Yeah.
And the way that the thing that many of your characters are keeping secret, only one other person knows, and it's that
from the past. Right. Or maybe the reader knows, but the character doesn't.
Yeah. it's powerful every time. So don't stop on my account.
No, I mean, I'm well aware of this. I'm all of my books are braided narratives, past, present, which I just think is so compelling. I love. They're set in different time periods and very different worlds. This one is in the music world, and all the books are so different. But as in terms of structure, that past, present, braided narrative allows you to just do such interesting things as a writer and then as a reader to see if it's done well.
Yeah, how you're going to reveal things, how you're going to show growth.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
And by the way, we're sunshine twins now because you have sunshine in your next title.
I do. And it's funny, in Canada, Sunshine Girls,
Yes.
my December release is called Sunshine Girls, but in Canada, it's like the page whatever in kind of our tabloid newspaper, the girl that's in a
Oh,
bikini.
really?
They're called the Sunshine Girls. I'm kind of amazed that it got through, but
it's like a centerfold kind of thing, or
no, it's like who's like in England, there's the tabloid that's got the kind of
like the page, whatever
girl. Yeah.
That's
so in here it's called the Sunshine Girls, but they're wearing
what paper has that in Canada?
The Sun.
The Sun. I'm good. That's so funny because my husband is actually in Toronto right now, like as we speak. Yeah, he's visiting his family. He's
that's right. You have
I'm an honorary Canadian, Molly. Like it's all but official, basically. So yeah, my husband grew up in Toronto and has lived in the States for quite a while, but he has dual citizenship, and my daughter has dual citizenship. So they promised to bring me to Canada if it ever comes to that. They'll get me in.
It feels like it's getting closer to that every minute sometimes.
It's a tough week, and I'm glad you mentioned that. And so will definitely donate. I think I'm so glad.
Moms Demand Action. Until we get a group that can lobby, as well as the NRA, we're in trouble. So I've put my money behind Moms Demand Action.
I love them, and Everytown and Shannon Watts. It's really, I've left Twitter. So I do find that my Instagram is becoming just like a little bit more political, which is fine because we need something. I just couldn't take Twitter anymore, but there are so many good people doing things and trying to get the word out. I can't leave my Instagram completely apolitical. I just can't. Because the will is there. I mean, the people in the US want something, the vast majority of people. And you just have a handful of people making these extremely corrupt choices. It's really hard. It's frustrating.
And lying.
And the immediate reaction of we can't, and it was about this, not that. And it's so frustrating.
They're hard times. And this is why we need books. We need books. To remind us of better things, and I find that, my thoughts get clearer, and the spin of the world slows down inside a good book, right? Like my feelings, the things I believe in are made more clear when I read books.
Yeah, and it creates empathy. I mean, storytelling is so important, and reading is so important. And I look at my daughter, who's a reader. We were briefly talking about our kids reading, and that gives me so much hope. These kids have empathy, and they are compassionate, and they're problem solvers. Doesn't mean they should have to do all of this, that they've inherited. But yeah, storytelling is so important.
It is.
That's how we connect.
It is. Amy, on that note, can you tell us really quickly, or can you tell us anything about, I know that you just finished the rough draft of your next book.
Well, it exists. So it's rough, and I have a long way to go. I don't have a title. I can say that it is about an extremely unusual family inspired by a real family.
Fun.
And I can say that it's set in California, and that it is also going to be nostalgic. And that's about all I can say at this point. It's not a lot, but and I can say that I love it. I really do.
All right. That's all we need.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Molly.
Amy, thank you so much for spending time with us today. Everybody out there, please stay safe, read a book, have a drink, donate some money to Moms Demand Action if that is available to you. Good night, everybody.
Thank you. Bye. Cheers.